Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the June 3rd Planning Commission meeting to order. If you'll all join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thanks, everybody, and again, welcome to tonight's meeting. We'll move on to the introductions. I'll start with myself. I'm Tyler McCloskey, the chair of the Planning Commission, and we'll go all the way down to my right. Joe?
Joe Morrison, Planning Commissioner.
Tiffany Mitchell, Planning Commission.
Annette Stewart, Planning Commission.
Stephanie Bailey, Planning Commission.
Paul Fontenot, Planning Commission.
Jim Fisk, Principal Planner.
Nick Bond, Community Development Director.
Connor Dahlquist, Associate Planner.
Right, and I don't think we have any planning commissioners online. And for number 4, the approval of minutes, it looks like we don't have the minutes tonight because of the fun we had with the Zoom last session. So those will be open or ready for review at the July meeting. And now we'll go ahead and move on to the business items. 5A, the public hearing 2025 comp plan amendments. Jim?
Wait. Mr. Chair, I would like to recuse myself from this discussion.
Okay.
Because I am the person I work for.
Okay.
Okay. I'll be leaving.
All right, Jim?
Thank you, Jim Fisk, City of Port Orchard. Tonight we will continue our review of proposed amendments to the city's comprehensive plan for the 2025 update cycle. As a reminder, the Planning Commission opened the public hearing at its May meeting and elected to continue it to tonight's meeting to allow for additional written public comment, specifically regarding item 4, the applicant-initiated comprehensive plan amendments. As of the date of the Planning Commission packet was published, the Department of Community Development received one written comment from Bill Palmer that was included in your packet. Since that time, 2 additional written comments have been submitted. These were emailed to the Commission at the close of business today, and hard copies were provided at your seat this evening. In general, the post-packet comments raise concerns related to potential development impacts associated with residential development. It's important to note that the Planning Commission's role is to evaluate the proposed changes to the comprehensive plan land use designation, not to review or approve specific development proposals. Development-related impacts such as traffic, critical area protections, and infrastructure capacity are regulated and mitigated through subsequent development review processes in accordance with the Port Orchard Municipal Code. To date, none of the proposed amendments have been revised since their initial presentation. For reference, the 2025 amendment docket includes 2 city-initiated text amendments and 3 applicant-initiated amendments. 2 items that were initially proposed have been removed from consideration. That is the Sherman Stormwater Park inclusion and, what was the other one? Oh, the whole avenue rezone, which will go through a site-specific process. The remaining items before the Commission include 2 city-initiated amendments, one to the capital facilities element, the water expenditures table, and the second to the transportation improvement program. The applicant-initiated amendments, also in conjunction with the city's amendment, deals with the capital facilities element, specifically the water expenditures table. The 4th item is a map amendment, which proposes to redesignate 13 parcels southwest of Southwest Old Clifton Road and Lloyd Parkway from industrial to medium residential, and to a legislative rezone from light industrial to residential 3. The area is environmentally constrained and not suitable for industrial development. Residential use is likely more consistent with the site's characteristics and existing infrastructure capacity. So tonight, the commission is asked to reopen the public hearing and take any final oral testimony, and then close the public hearing, deliberate, and provide a recommendation to the City Council on the full package of the proposed comprehensive plan amendments. City Council meeting is tentatively scheduled to consider the Commission's recommendation at its June 10th meeting, following the completion of the required 60-day Department of Commerce review.
Thanks, Jim. On that, we'll go ahead and reopen it. It looks like we have one gentleman in the audience. If you would like to come up and speak for the public hearing. Okay.
I have a representative that's going to speak. Although I would see if there's any questions. Do you want me to come to the mic?
It's just for, yeah.
It's not a question and answer
Just
time,
for
it's just for
testimony, yeah.
testimony.
I just
Okay.
clarification of anything you guys might have
Okay.
read. So, but do you want me to come up?
Only if you want to testify.
Yeah, I just wanted to. Hi, Mike Diaz. I'm the applicant. There was two areas of concerns that came up through the last hearing, and I wanted to let you all know that I have, after the meeting that day, talked to some of the folks on Durfee Lane and also met with them the day after. Since then, we have decided not to go through Durfee Lane. We have another access point on Old Clifton, so that's where we're going to be have our primary access of 70 feet wide access through my properties on Old Clifton, so it doesn't affect anybody. So that's the good news on that. So I'm also sympathetic to change with those folks, and so I have drafted an engineer copy of a proposal, if I get the zoning change, of course, that if you wanted to see and view, that's our plan. Second thing came up that was that I was going to be building apartments on the property. And also, I had clarified that wasn't true. So if you were thinking that that's the case, with the R3, I know it opens up the door for apartments. I'm not interested in apartments there. I'm interested in residential. So if it came down to switching from R3 to R2 to satisfy everybody, I would do that as well. I don't need to have R3. So just wanted to throw that concession in if that made everybody a little bit more calmer as far as considering the rezone. So do you have any questions I can answer while I'm up here?
It's just for testimony, though.
Okay, that's it. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. And if we have anybody online that would like to give testimony, if you could raise your hand.
We have William Palmer raising their hand.
Great. Welcome, William. If you could state your name, address, and 3 minutes of testimony.
There's no time limit for this type of public
Okay.
hearing.
Thanks.
My name is William Palmer, and I'm working with Mike Diaz on this comp plan amendment, your item number 4. One thing I would like to emphasize is that when we submitted the application material, we provided some pretty extensive commentary relative to what makes a site suitable for industrial development. And I believe if you've read that you looked at some of the examples that were provided in the application material, and also we addressed the criteria that the city has for what amendments can be considered by the city. I won't go into the ones that probably don't muster up to the standard, but this is one that does. And there's been at least an 18-year period when this site was zoned industrial. I had even worked on a couple of proposals during that period of time, but nobody has stepped up to take the property on as an industrial site. Some of the information that we provided in the application material indicated the challenges with the topography, where we would have to do extensive grading and filling in some areas in order to make it even work. And then we had the issue of access. The one exhibit that Mike has presented tonight indicates that there is a way to get access. However, that's for the subdivision, but not for industrial development. The graphics that we included in the comp plan amendment showed some extensive grading, and that was going to create a slope, still respecting the creek and its buffer, but that slope was going to make things worse if we were to try to get access, as tonight's graphic shows. All in all, I've worked on a lot of comp plan amendments over the years, mostly in Kitsap County, but in a lot of other jurisdictions too. And if you're looking for an application that meets the criteria of the code, and this is just one of them that measures up, whereas a lot of others are a bit more questionable. The last time we were at your public hearing, a lot of time was spent on the access to the to the west, to Anderson Hill Road. That does exist. At the time we prepared the amendment back in late December and early January, that was the only option, but as Mike Diaz just testified, we're working on another access point. To emphasize Jim Fisk's point, those are issues that are generally resolved at the time of, in this case, preliminary plat application, and things get worked out. There will be another public hearing process when the plat application goes through the city's processes. So it's not like you have to really make a decision about whether we've got sufficient access to the property when you have another whole public hearing process that the planning commission gets to participate in, and you'll be making a recommendation to the city council. So I don't see that as a particular hang-up at the time of comp plan amendment. Since we met the criteria, we had an access. It may not have been the best back in January. We knew we would be working on other options, and the one that Mike Diaz presented tonight is one of those options. So the other issue that came up last planning commission meeting was whether or not Mr. Diaz is planning to do apartments. And we've tried to make it clear from the initial application for the comp plan amendment that the object was to develop a subdivision and not for single family detached and not for apartments. One thing that happened last fall, 2024, your city council was considering whether or not the city maybe had too much multiple family development, a valid question. They came to a tentative answer, but in this case, we're not proposing multiple family. We're only proposing subdivision. We chose R3 to give us the greatest flexibility in the design of that subdivision. What you see in the graphic that Mike Diaz presented tonight is how we've how our thought process is going toward subdivision for single-family development. There's a lot of work yet to be done to make that proposal in the form of a preliminary plat application. So it appears to me that the Planning Commission's basic role here is to make the assessment as does the change from industrial to residential make sense? I think your answer has to be yes, it does make sense. Not trying to put words in your mouth, but we did a very careful evaluation of what would work on the site, and single-family residential is the best. Could it be developed under R3 for multiple family? The answer is yes, but that poses some other construction issues that we didn't want to get into. So if you have any questions, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else online that would like to give testimony?
John Medlock has their hand raised.
Okay. Welcome, John. If you could state your name and address.
John Medlock, 1740 Southwest Durfee. My apologies, I joined a couple minutes late. I joined at the tail end of what I believe was Mike Diaz's presentation, so I didn't hear the beginning of what he said. I guess, yeah, back to my initial and my continuous hang up, and I understand the process, which seems a little rope-a-dope to me, where you're like, oh, we just approve it for rezoning, and then we think about all the feasibility and the issues and the impact after, which I understand that's your thing here. Like everybody keeps stating, you don't approve it, it stays industrial, nothing happens with it, chances are no construction happens, there is no impact, there is no problem, there is no little points to be crossed and I's to be dotted, T's to be crossed. It just stays as it is. But then nothing happens with the land. Mike Diaz got to figure out what he's doing elsewhere. I understand that. You go to rezoning it. Now we're into this thing where all of a sudden we get into a point to where, all right, well, what are we doing? And I understand, oh, well, that's not where we're at. But that is point of it. I think it is really important to talk about the whole 360 scope of it. What are you doing with the land? How big is it? Where are you getting your utilities from? How are you getting your access to? And that might have been something that Mike Diaz touched on, but you're like, again, for the residents of Durfee, you're like, well, you guys are getting a little jumpy here. You're like, no, you told us you're coming through here. You told us this is going to be your access point. This is where you're getting your land, your water, your sewer, your power, your roads, your two roads, because you need road in, road out, you know, like, I don't know what's happening, but the impact seems greater if you do change it. So I would implore to not rezone it, to leave it as it is, to have nothing happen because of those details that are important, that I think us getting strong-armed for some big subdivision seems insane. And I think the city has a conflict of interest here because you're going to make a lot of money off of X homes back there, and our 8 homes don't really matter to what Mike Diaz is trying to do. But at the same time, you already approved us. We're already here. So I think the burden of construction does lie on Mike Diaz. He's got to figure out how to get around my well, not to just strong arm me off and put me on city water. Oh, I'll hook you up to our terrible, crappy city water that has to get filled. Like, I want my clean aquifer. I don't want his water. I don't want back on the sewer. I don't want to have to pay for that. I get mine for free. I already paid for it. I already invested. I already did my construction funds. So it's just not compatible, in my opinion, to even go down the lane, but I see how we're not there yet. I would just like, I don't know, in my opinion, I think it should stay as it is, and he figure it out. The burden of feasibility is on the purchaser. You knew what you were getting into when you bought this land. You knew it wasn't feasible for industrial. You bought it hoping for a residential change. You bid a big gamble on that. That, to me, seems a little insane, but whatever. The burden is on you. And I think that was a big gamble. But to say that it's already a done deal, and like the gentleman before said, oh, you have to. The answer is yes. You're like, okay. It's seems crazy. I spent 2 years looking for my property to make sure it was feasible and I could build a nice home on it. And I did a lot of due diligence and I did a lot of work. And I worked with a lot of different agencies to make sure I could do what I was trying to do here and that it was, again, feasible and the correct purchase for me. If Mike Diaz spent 2 years doing that on that property, I don't know what he was thinking to go forward with it. It didn't seem very feasible for his initial plans. And for his next plans or your next plan, you're like, you're just scrambling at this point because it's not feasible. It seems weird. Sorry to take you guys' time. In my opinion, it should stay industrial, which, as everybody has said, that means nothing's going to happen. There's a lot of land left. You don't have to take every single square foot of the land here to do everything. You can move elsewhere. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for sharing.
Of course. Thank you, sir.
All right, anybody else who would like to share online, please raise your hand.
There are no other hands raised.
Go ahead and close the public comment portion of the public hearing, and I'll open it up for the commissioners. I'll start with Joe, if you'd like to say anything.
I'll pass for now.
Okay. Tiffany?
I don't think I have any other comments other than how much I, again, appreciate the engagement of the public on this and people who feel that they will be impacted. I would also like to just express thanks to Mr. Diaz and Mr. Palmer for your efforts to engage those who were impacted. I think that that means a lot, and I really appreciate that the big issue that seemed to be problematic for folks was the access point. I hope that you do go forward and actually work on making sure that that access point is something that is more amenable to the folks that are there so that it impacts them as less as possible.
Thank you, Tiffany. Stephanie?
No, I appreciate the conversation. I'm glad we postponed this because it created the conversation between the property owner and the residents that lived out there. So that's a plus. It's my understanding you've chosen the potential separate access off Clifton. Mr. Medlock, who just testified, I don't think he must not be aware of that.
Yeah, and I went to most neighbors to try to find everybody.
Oh, right, okay.
So, yeah.
All right, I don't have anything more at this time.
Paul?
Yeah, over the past month, I've been thinking about this issue here and there, and it's kind of a little bit troubling to me on multiple fronts. One of them being the implications of what a decision like this could mean. It seems like a small rezoning, which that is what is on the docket tonight is a rezoning, ultimately, from industrial to R3. But I've been hearing a lot of back and forth from both sides about implications of this or that. One thing that does trouble me is this almost lackadaisical rhetoric about never there being industrial development on that property, and that troubles me a little bit in the idea that if we leave it in this current zoning, that there could ultimately be industrial development there in some capacity, and then we'd kind of be having this conversation all over again. But instead of it being a residential district, it's some sort of industrial development there. I'm sure where there's been industrial development all over the nation, there has been people who, generations before were saying this is never going to happen here. So that's had me a little bit troubled. There's also the issue of Mr. Diaz building through Durfee Lane or with proposals, and I do appreciate the work that he's done in terms of trying to find an alternate route in the proposals that he's had. But again, they're just proposals, and at the end of the day, nothing firm has been decided. The other thing that is the implication that has been troubling me is the idea of Mr. Diaz going someplace else and developing this someplace else, and we coming back here, many months or years from now with another community who is upset that residential building is happening in their more former rural neighborhood, and what the implications of that could be. I I don't know, I've been thinking about this quite a little bit. I know, again, right now, we're dealing, maybe a lot of these worries have been from the fact that it is just a simple rezoning. That's, as of right now, it's just one simple decision of going from industrial to R3. Oh, I will mention that one thing I heard from both sides a little bit was what kind of development was going to be there. That Mr. Diaz is planning more subdivisions rather than apartments. I'd also read in the testimony that we got that we have, you know, frankly, in the eyes of many people, enough apartments and enough multifamily development. I personally would disagree with that. I would say that if and ultimately a development does go there, that it would be better for it to be multifamily development than it would be to be single-family residential development. That's just my personal opinion. As I said in last month's planning commission, these are opinions that I would move forward in the decision-making process once that issue comes up. The worries that I have in my own mind, in my own heart right now, come from the fact that this is just a simple rezoning and all of the implications on both sides. So that's just what I wanted to express, and food for thought for the rest of the commission and anybody listening. So.
And on that, I will entertain a motion if somebody has one.
I will move to recommend that the City Council adopt an ordinance approving the 2025 Comprehensive Plan Amendment, including updates to the capital facilities element, the Transportation Improvement Program, and amendments to the Comprehensive Plan Map and Legislative Zoning Map as presented.
I second.
All right, all opposed, or all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And we have one abstention. All right. We'll wait for Annette to come back before we move on to 5B. Welcome back. And we're moving on to business item 5B, a discussion about middle housing grant deliverables. Is that Jim?
Thank you. Before we move into the public hearing on the draft middle housing ordinance, we'd like to provide an overview of the city's work to date under the middle housing grant provided by the Washington State Department of Commerce. In 2023 and 2024, the state legislature adopted several housing bills, including House Bill 1110, Senate Bill 2321, and House Bill 1337, all aimed at increasing housing options in urban areas. These laws require cities like Port Orchard to allow a broader range of housing types, such as duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, townhouses, all within areas traditionally zoned for single family. To support this effort, the city entered an agreement, a grant agreement with the Department of Commerce. The grant established phased deliverables to ensure timely and effective code updates. The first deliverable was the Middle Housing Options Memorandum. This was completed in-house by city staff. It evaluated the new state requirements, presented zoning alternatives, and laid out a policy framework to guide future code amendments. This memorandum was shared with both the Planning Commission and the City Council and submitted to Commerce in June 2024, which satisfied the first year requirement of the grant. To support the next phase, the city worked with AHBL, our on-call planning consultant, to prepare 2 additional technical memorandums which were provided in tonight's packet. The first is a design standards evaluation, and the second, an evaluation of the Port Orchard Municipal Code. These documents reviewed our current zoning and development standards and proposed specific amendments to bring the Port Orchard Municipal Code into compliance with state law. The findings in these memos informed the draft middle housing ordinance on tonight's agenda. Among the recommendations is a revision to the R1, R2, and R3 zones to permit at least 2 units per lot. While the city initially considered repealing the R1 zone, we instead chose to revise it to meet the Tier 3 requirements, which reflect Port Orchard's current population. The technical memos also suggest strategies to prepare for possible Tier 2 compliance in the future. In summary, the completed memorandums represent significant milestones under the grant and support the ordinance under your consideration this evening. Final adoption of the middle housing ordinance is required no later than June 30th to avoid Commerce's middle housing model code overriding the regulations in our municipal code. The grant deliverables are due to Commerce by June 20th. No action is requested at this time, but we wanted to acknowledge this work related to the discussion ahead.
Thanks, Jim. We'll start with Paul. Do you have anything you'd like to say about the grant deliverables for middle housing?
Yeah, just that it's good to see a lot of the work that's kind of been done, just over the past months and, oh wow, better part of a year. And I think that's moving forward with this middle housing ordinance is a positive. Like I said in the previous issue on the docket, I'm in support of more multifamily houses, more housing diversity in terms of that, and I think this is a step forward with that. And yeah, full support with it.
Annette?
Nothing.
Tiffany?
Nothing at this time?
Nothing.
All right. We can go ahead and move on to 5C, the public hearing for middle housing model ordinance development regulations.
Tonight's agenda includes a public hearing on the city's proposed middle housing ordinance. This item is brought forward in response to the recently adopted state legislation. It is also necessary to implement the bill's policies of the 2024 comprehensive plan, which was adopted by the city council in December of 2024. The ordinance responds to the requirements under multiple state laws, specifically House Bill 1110, Senate Bill 2321, which requires cities to allow middle housing in areas previously limited to single-family uses, and House Bill 1337, which expands flexibility for accessory dwelling units, and Senate Bill 5184, which limits certain off-street parking requirements. The proposed amendments are structured to satisfy the requirements for Tier 3 cities and must be adopted by June 30th, 2025 to avoid the automatic application of the state's model code for middle housing. Since December, the Planning Commission has reviewed components of the proposed ordinance in stages. The complete draft was presented at the May 2025 meeting, and the current version incorporates feedback provided at that time. In summary, the proposed amendments allows up to 2, 4, 6 dwelling units per lot for R1, R2, and R3 zoning districts respectively. It establishes a new unit-based density approach in lieu of structure-based limitations. It introduces a unit lot subdivision process to support fee simple ownership. Updates the ADU regulations to comply with state standards, and aligns parking regulations with Senate Bill 5184. It also consolidates, revises residential design standards into a clearer and more objective format. It streamlines overlay district standards, including updates in the McCormick Village overlay and the creation of a single height overlay district applied citywide. The ordinance proposes revisions to over a dozen chapters in Title 20, and it adds a new chapter for unit lot subdivision. The SEPA determination of non-significance was issued on April 29th, 2025, and the draft ordinance was submitted to the Department of Commerce for the required 60-day review. Commerce's comments related primarily to ADU conversions in critical areas have been addressed in the final draft. Staff properly noticed tonight's public hearing consistent with the requirements of Port Orchard Municipal Code 20.25. Staff requests that the Planning Commission open the public hearing and accept public testimony, deliberate on proposed amendments, and make recommendations to the City Council. We have scheduled City Council action for June 17th, 2025, which is right at the end of the Department of Commerce's review. And I'll give it back to you, Mr. McCloskey.
Thanks, Jim. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. I think this might be short because we have nobody in the audience. Do we have anybody online?
There is nobody online.
Go ahead and close the public hearing. And if Joe has anything?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Stephanie? Paul?
Now it's time.
All right, I will entertain a motion. There is a suggested motion on page 79 of the packet.
I move to recommend that the City Council adopt an ordinance approving the proposed amendments to Port Orchard Municipal Code Title 20, collectively known as the Middle Housing Ordinance as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have first and second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes. We will All right, business item 5D, the director's report.
Good evening. I wanted to give the Planning Commission an update on our pre-approved ADU project. We've been working on this for about 9 months now, and we went live with the program on Friday. There was a Facebook post from the city, and it was the second most shared Facebook post behind the reopening of the splash pad this year. So people seem to be pretty excited about it. I'm going to share some graphics. The first image here that's coming up on the screen, these are the 4 models that are currently available. We've given them names. The floor plans range from 480 square foot for a 1-bedroom unit called the Lille, which is a Norwegian word for little cottage. Each city got to pick the name of one of these, so that's obviously Paulsbo. And the rest of these are more familiar names. The 600 square foot unit, and then 2 options for 800 square foot units, one of which is 2 stories, so it has a small footprint but lots of interior space. So we have updated the city's website. I'm going to share that really quickly. So the website now has, it's catching up with me here. So there's the 4 units on the website. You can click on each one and see the floor plan for the units. There's also 2 additional units that are coming soon. One of them is a 1,000 square foot Rambler, and it is intended so that it can be oriented with a door on the narrow end or on the broad side of the building. And then there's a second unit that is going to be a carriage house, which can be configured as either a 2-story or a 2-bedroom with a 2-car garage, or I'm sorry, a 2-bedroom with a 3-car garage, or a 1-bedroom with a 2-car garage, so that you can basically build on top of your existing parking spaces at your property without actually losing those parking spaces. So those units will be coming out later this year once we get through the plan review process. On the website, we have, there's now a pre-approved ADU plan request form. You have to show that you are eligible to receive the plans, which means that you have property within the county and a site that you've selected for the unit. And then we will share via Dropbox the plans so that you can work with a contractor on developing your site plan. The building plans are already approved. You still have to go through site plan review. And we have written a lengthy and detailed document how to use and construct a pre-approved ADU, and it walks people through the process, suggesting that they hire a surveyor to identify their property corners and talking to contractors about the various options and so forth. We also have included on the website a cost estimate for what the units are going to cost to get permitted, which while the plans are approved, you still have to pull a building permit, you have to pay your impact fees. But right now, the 600 square foot unit out the door is $5,719.24. The larger units will be slightly more than that. The smaller unit will be slightly less than that because we charge building permits based on the square footage of the structure. So you are now able to request the plans. You're now able to apply online for the permits to do this work. The only thing you have to submit is the online application along with the site plan, and we're expecting that we'll be able to turn around the site plans usually within 2 weeks if everything looks good. If there's back and forth, obviously it's going to take longer to make revisions and resubmit your site plan. But the whole idea of this program is to make it easy for people to add space for family members, parents, or just to create a rental unit on their lot, which provides them with income and also helps to increase the supply of housing without changing the character of Port Orchard neighborhoods. So we're excited that that's live. Jim and I are going to go down to the farmers market this Saturday and do some public outreach and share this information with the public and answer questions. The rest of the jurisdictions in Kitsap County are also participating in the program. I believe Paulsbo just took their program live yesterday. Kitsap County and Bremerton and Bainbridge Island are a little bit further behind. And my understanding is that Kitsap County is only going to make this available within the urban growth areas and the LAMRIDs, which Manchester is a LAMRID. And the rural areas will not be able to use these without actually paying for the plans and going through a conditional use permit process. But more information to come from our neighbors, and I was just excited to share the news. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
A lot of work on that.
It was a team effort. I mean, Heather from Paulsbo was really the early champion on this, but I think every jurisdiction chipped in and worked together to get this thing approved. And it's we've got 2 more plans on the way, so hopefully those will be a little bit smoother now that we've gone through the process once before.
Anything else for the director's report?
I think so.
All right, so our next meeting is July 1st. We'll go ahead and adjourn tonight and see everybody on the...
I thought we were gonna have final comments. Sorry. I just wanted to share the public's enthusiasm for these new designs, these new ADU designs. As someone who lives in an ADU, I think it's really cool that we're like taking it seriously as not something that's just like a mother-in-law thing. That's actually a residence that people live in. I think one of the big challenges in more urbanist-minded people in America is how do we take the sort of single-family residential design that most of our towns and neighborhoods have fallen into over the past decades, and how do we build that into something that's actually usable urban infrastructure? And part of that filling in that urban space is ADUs, and I think it fits the character well. I looked at the designs of these things and I really dig them. I think they're really cool. They are super practical, and honestly, they're pretty good for people who don't want something the size of a large suburban house. And I think that's a really, really cool option. It works to fill in that gap in middle housing that we've been seeking. So really enthusiastic. Just wanted to put a verbal smile on everybody's face.
Else have anything for the good of the order before I adjourn? Okay, now we'll go ahead and adjourn, and we'll see everybody on the 1st of July. Thanks.
Recording stopped.